Hey, won't you be my neighbor? Malik flashing in preseason action last week and throughout camp as well. A couple of spectacular sideline grabs giving Giants fans a glimpse of what could be to come. Unfortunately, New York also saw the old Jones. Daniel Jones' talent still offset by untimely turnovers. CBS Sports' Adam Aizer is joining us now to answer some of those burning questions as these draft days do approach quickly. I love the draft board behind you, I must say, especially when we look at Pete Prisco's team. But let's talk about Malik Nabers here. Looking to become the first Giants wide receiver to finish inside the top 24 since Odell Beckham all the way back in 2018. Even with the lackluster play from Daniel Jones, do you think that Nabers can make that sort of thing happen and outpace his ADP?
Absolutely. You know, he has an ADP in the 6th round on CBS. I do not believe that is going to be the case. I think he's going to be usually about a 4th round pick, but he has the talent to overcome that. We saw the catches he made in that game against the Texans. And I would give you some other examples of wide receivers who had bad quarterback play and still thrived. I think you could look at Odell Beckham back in 2014. Eli Manning was coming off a terrible year, and then Manning had a really good season. But there are others. Mike Evans that year, his quarterbacks were Mike Glennon and Josh McCown. Evans was a top 10 wide receiver. A.J. Brown had 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns with Ryan Tannehill and Marcus Mariota. Jalen Waddle, well, more recently with Waddle, wide receiver 15 per game. He had an okay version of Tua and Brissett. I drafted Malik Nabers at the 3-4 turn in a 3-receiver league last week. So that's 36th overall as a PPR league. I'm comfortable with him. Right around there, I'd say. I don't want to go any earlier than, say, 30th for Nabers, but he is so talented. Bad quarterbacks have given us good receivers before. Nabers can absolutely do it.
Yeah, just in those couple looks we got, that small sample size, attacking the ball in the air, so the throw doesn't have to be perfect for Malik Nabers to haul it in and make something special out of it. We also got to talk about Chicago and Rome Odunze, who's been climbing up draft boards with a glimpse of something special in each preseason game. Rookie quarterback Caleb Williams, an embarrassment of riches around him in terms of targets, and that begs the question of where does that target share go? And I think we also need to look at, with this Shane Waldron offense, that 12 package, who is wide receiver 2 and who comes off the field in those sets. What's your opinion on Odunze heading into this season?
Yeah, that's a great question and very unclear right now. I would say in week 1, he's not going to be on the field all that much in 2 receiver sets, maybe not at all, because Odunze has flashed in the preseason, but it has been almost exclusively when DJ Moore and Keenan Allen have come out of the games. Also, DeAndre Swift has barely played. He's played 2 or 3 snaps in these 2 preseason games, and that's a guy who's going to catch a lot more passes than, say, Khalil Herbert. So I have a hard time here. Here's how I evaluate these 3. I haven't drafted them really at all, but the best value to me is Odunze in round 10, looking at current CBS ADP. The worst value is probably Keenan Allen in round 8. And the second best, in the middle there, would be around 4 ADP on DJ Moore. I haven't pulled the trigger on any of them because I don't know how it's going to play out. I'm getting a little bit more excited about Moore because I'm getting less excited about Keenan Allen. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, it's Allen sort of maybe hurt again for the 3rd straight season or getting less playing time, and Odunze and DJ Moore really showing up. But if I'm going to take one piece here, I'm going to wait as long as I can. Round 10 ADP, round 11 actually, right at the 10-11 turn for Odunze. That's the best value in my opinion.
There seems to be an explosivity there with the youth of Odunze relative to what we've seen thus far out of Keenan Allen, maybe just shaking off the rust, but explosive is not how I would define these limited reps we've seen out of Keenan Allen. Let's talk a quarterback again here in the form of Anthony Richardson, who in his rookie season, we saw it cut short, but on pace to do some special things from a fantasy standpoint. He gives you that dual threat ability. Jayden Daniels so far in this preseason maybe could fill that role. Hopefully a full season of health out in front of him. He's shown us impressive stuff thus far. Makes fantasy questions as to where he might be drafted. The dual threat nature of Daniels. How are you approaching Washington's now QB1 officially?
Yeah, I'm glad you compared those 2 players because I don't draft Anthony Richardson because I like to wait 2 or 3 rounds to draft Jayden Daniels. They have very similar profiles. These are 2 guys who could rush for 1,000 yards. but Daniels is a much better quarterback prospect, and I think a much better thrower. I didn't think Richardson threw the ball well in the first preseason game. He apparently missed some open receivers in the joint practice session last week. That's what he's going to do. And I would take him ahead of Daniels because what he did last year, Anthony Richardson, was spectacular. But Daniels give you a little bit of a discount on that type of player. And I think you should be very aggressive drafting Jayden Daniels, but I do think you should back him up. So if you look at Jayden Daniels' average draft position, throw that out the window. He's going to be a riser. I think you could start looking at him around round 8 or so. I would take him ahead of guys like Tua, Purdy, Jared Goff. He'd be right there with Dak Prescott in a 6-point per passing touchdown league. I'd take him ahead of Dak in a 4-point per passing touchdown league. But I would back him up with one of the guys I just mentioned. So you take Jayden Daniels in round 8, maybe in round 10, 11, 12, something like that. You get Purdy, you get Tua, you get Goff. So if things don't go well for Jayden Daniels, you have a really reliable backup, and you didn't take a quarterback in any of your first 7 picks. It's a really good way to approach your draft.
Ball could be in the air plenty there in Washington as they continue to try and rebuild towards a true contender. But if you're playing from behind and you got Jayden Daniels, he's going to be looking to make some plays. We don't have to win games. We have to win matchups, and that's what we will look to do here. I know you established your POV on a less than stellar quarterback and an all-world wide receiver. Let's talk about one that's already given us a career worth of a sample size. Davante Adams, another season, another quarterback throwing to him with Gardner Minshew now announced as the starter. So I see your Daniel Jones and I raise you a Gardner Minshew, let's say. Does that affect the way that you're approaching Davante Adams at this juncture of his career? The target share is going to be there, but is the ball going to be there?
Yeah, look, I think Minshew's a significant upgrade over Daniel Jones. I think this is a much better situation. And I think you look at Davante Adams, and he's 31 years old, but guys of his caliber, they have good seasons at 31 years old. They have great seasons. They have great seasons at 32 years old. I don't think he's too old. He had the worst quarterback situation of his career last year, and he finished as a top 20 guy. I do think it's going to get better. The Raiders had the 3rd highest off-target rate in football last year. The Colts, under Minshew, they were 21st. That's not great, but it's a lot better than 30th. So things will get better. We've seen as a rookie, Gardner Minshew gave us 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns with DJ Chark. Okay, we've seen him with the Eagles passing game. Those guys put up big numbers with Gardner Minshew. Last year, Michael Pittman, actually, ironically, Michael Pittman and Davante Adams averaged almost the same amount of PPR fantasy points per game, but those are top 20 guys. I think there's more. There's a stat for Davante Adams that encourages me. His yak per catch, it was horrible last year. 3.3 yards after the catch per reception. That is a stat that I've noticed tends to bounce back, regress to the mean. He's not that bad at yak anymore. So if that's more like 4.5 or something like that, he's going to have a much better season, much more efficient season. I draft him a lot in or a late round 2 or early round 3. I think I'm the high guy if you look at me, Jamie, Dave, and Heath. So I think it's a good thing for Davante Adams. And don't sleep on Minshew in 2 quarterback leagues. He could be a top 20 guy.
Gardner Minshew, not afraid to let it rip, as is our Adam Aizer. Appreciate you, as always, stopping by, shedding some light on these names we approach today. And don't forget, it's Fantasy Football Today, the premier pod in all of fantasy football. They get you set each and every week. It's about draft time, ladies and gentlemen. Get it in your ears and thank us later. You want to win? Win with us on Fantasy Football Today.